Welcome. September 8th, 2021 City Council work session. And it is good to see councilors back in their seats in their little boxes. I'm sorry that we are not meeting in person as we would have hoped. So thank you all for joining us again in this remote meeting format we're using as our state and community continue to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. This format enables the City Council to meet and take care of business while keeping everyone safe. For work sessions like this one, where there is no opportunity for public comment, those wishing to access the meeting can do so by watching the live stream available on our website, the broadcast on Comcast Channel 21, or by calling into one of the phone numbers listed for this meeting on the public webcast and meeting materials web page. And thank you again for joining us. And with that, welcome. I am hoping that a few more councilors join us in a couple of minutes. I actually am convening a meeting of the Eugene Urban Renewal Agency for our first work session item on downtown open space improvements. And with that, I'll turn it over to the manager.
Thank you so much, Mayor. It is really fun to see everybody. It feels like it's been a long time, and it also feels like it went by in a blink. So it's good to see you. We have a busy fall. It's nice to kick it off with something that's kind of more fun. So I'll just turn it over to Will and have him walk you through our Willamette presentation.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Agency Board. I'm Will Dowdy from Community Development, and I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to share another project with you. And as I talk about sharing, I'm going to share my screen. And hopefully we have success. It's a privilege to be the one who gets to welcome you back from your summer break. And as you begin a fall session, I will be talking with you about closing out the projects from the 2016 Urban Renewal Plan. The 2016 plan amendment had a little bit of everything: economic development, urban repair, infrastructure, and public space. The downtown broadband network is built and providing superlatively fast service at affordable prices within the initial project boundary. Meanwhile, the upgraded infrastructure backbone from this project is giving a boost to the internet that our public schools use and serving as a jumping off point for our feasibility study for community-wide coverage. The Farmers Market project is under construction as we speak, and the workers, led by Lise Crutcher-Lewis, are moving us towards on-time completion before the beginning of the market season next year, while also keeping folks safe and keeping the project on budget. Connected with the Farmers Market project are right-of-way improvements within the park blocks. A segment of West Park Street is in the middle of being torn up right now, and shortly after, we'll see construction begin on the Southwest Park block for the new restroom. Next spring, a public works team will transform this section of 8th Avenue. 1059 Willamette is not quite as far along, but we'll be back with the work session in about a month for you to consider proposed deal points to create 129 new housing units downtown. Which brings us to today. I'll present a project that responds to your direction that we identify public space improvements outside of the park blocks. And I'll show how the remaining $400,000 of tax increment funds that you set aside for open space could be used to make further improvements in the public experience of Eugene. Before I start talking about project specifics, I'd like to acknowledge that while I get to present this to you, the bulk of the work on this has been done by Eric Brown, our downtown manager, Lauren Berry in facilities, with a consultant team led by Doherty Landscape Architects. In 2016, we put on a large public process and survey about downtown public space with a nonprofit organization called Project for Public Spaces. One of the locations that they studied and gathered public feedback about was the section of Willamette Street between the Holt Center and the Graduate Hotel that we've begun calling the Willamette Connection. One part walking and biking corridor, one part plaza for the Holt Center, one part Memorial Garden. This public space underperforms in the ways that matter most. People are not drawn to walk through it as much as we would like, and those who are not drawn to linger and enjoy it. We've realized how much more important this connection can be given the amount of public and private investment that has gone into Fifth Avenue recently, especially the 5th Street Market expansion and Market District Commons, the university's 510 Oak building, and of course, the downtown and riverfront project, with its nearly completed streets and park. This new investment joins a number of existing businesses and public amenities like the train station and post office, all of which feel disproportionately disconnected from the rest of the downtown core. Building off of the recommendations from Project for Public Spaces, the Doherty Landscape Architects team has analyzed the details of this space and looked for ways for this block to be a bridge connecting activity centers. There's more text here than I expected you'll be able to read. The important point here is that the complete design provides openness, accessibility, safety, and opportunities for art, activity, and celebration. While the full cost of this work is beyond the funds currently available in the district, it would be about $2.5 million. The team has identified areas of highest priorities that could be improved with funds available. The first phase of work would focus on the most fundamental aspects of the larger plan: accessibility, welcoming, and safety, which are most needed at the northern and southern gateways. The North Gateway here on 6th Avenue sometimes is beautiful, especially with the lush greenery of the trees and ivy-covered walls. Not colored, but covered. Unfortunately, pretty pictures don't always make for the best urban experiences. People walking through the space tend to give the ivy a bit of a wide berth. And when it isn't green, the concrete is less inviting. And I've had to learn that my experience of this corridor is quite different from that of someone dependent on the existing ramp to get to the terrace outside of the Eugene Conference Center. The South Gateway has its own ivy wall and an unusual double crosswalk with a driveway that makes the walking experience a bit disconcerting. The proposed first phase of work emphasizes clarity for people walking and on bikes as they enter the corridor from the north and south. It replaces the ivy wall on the north with lower plantings and creates a new accessible ramp that's contiguous with the main path of travel rather than being in a separate location. And it begins to open up sightlines throughout the space to give all the users of the space greater confidence in their safety. To get to this design, the project team has worked closely with city staff, especially the Halt Center, Public Works staff, and the downtown team. The Graduate Hotel has been an integral part of this work, and I'm very happy to share that a representative of the Eugene Japanese American Memorial Committee has written a letter of support for this project, included as attachment A in your packet. And I should note that this project abuts but does not include the memorial. I'd like to move into a bit more detail about the financial side of things. The current project estimate for design, permitting, and construction ranges between $460,000 and $500,000. Public Works staff has $70,000 available to invest in the accessibility and pedestrian improvements, which puts the funding need at $390,000 to $430,000. As I mentioned, the agency board has reserved $400,000 of tax increment for downtown open space. You can see how the math works out. If the agency board put the remaining tax increment towards this project, we'd be in the ballpark, hopefully with a small savings, but possibly just shy of the full amount. And I think this is an important part of the conversation, an opportunity to be transparent at the beginning of a project so that if you choose to go forward, you can have confidence in a successful resolution despite some uncertainties. I'm sure that most of you are aware of how unpredictable prices are in the construction world right now, especially as various materials are experiencing big cost swings. We've thought about this quite a bit and want to build options into this proposal for each scenario. If the project is on the upper end of the cost estimate, and assuming that we've already done a responsible amount of value engineering, we'd first look for additional funds that might be a good match for this project, and then explore more significant reductions of the project scope, even to the point of focusing entirely on the north end of the project, the 6th Avenue side, and leaving the South Gateway, the 7th Avenue side, for a later phase. Considering the emphasis on accessibility and safety, the project team wants to be sure that the details aren't neglected and recommends that we do only as much of the project as can be done well. If the project bid lands on the lower end of the estimate, staff recommends that any remaining funds be put to work on improvements for the open space connections throughout the district, especially alley lighting and sidewalk repair. These sorts of projects are included in the urban renewal plans category of open space. They are easily scalable to the extent of the available funding, and they go a long way to making downtown an inviting part of our community. In the 2016 plan amendment, you established a specific process for urban renewal projects. We've completed the public engagement and project scoping, and I presented a summary of that to you. The next step in the process is a public hearing in which you would ask community members to comment on whether the open space project should move forward, and if so, how it should be funded. Directing the agency director to schedule this public hearing is one of the options identified in your packet for today. Once you have had the opportunity for this public comment, then will come the time for you to deliberate and act, either moving the project forward with urban renewal funding or not. Today, the question for your consideration is whether you would like to continue on to a public hearing and subsequent deliberation. Thank you for this time, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much. This is a really nice way to begin our fall term of council sessions, and I really enjoyed seeing these schematics and appreciated that. And we have several hands up. So first, Emily, then Mike, then Claire.
Thank you, and thank you for this presentation. I really like the schematics. I'm so excited about this project, and I really hope that you'll support it to go forward quickly. It's a little bit of a time crunch. I've been meeting with Eric pretty much every week since he started, so more than a couple of years, I think. And we looked hard and talked a lot about the problems with downtown. And I've mentioned before that I'm very concerned about the rivers of 6th and 7th, dividing our newer development and our traditional center. I got to see the plans in detail right before our break. Eric and I had a meeting, and I'm really impressed with the thought and care, and that it can be done in stages. And boy, I hope we have a little extra money, because you know how I care about sidewalks. This can make a really big difference in this area. I remembered when the celebration, we have really tight bottlenecks across from the garden. And I'm really glad to see that being opened up. There was some plans to put seats there, which I said I didn't like because it reminds me of the wavy wall downtown that we had to take out. And I don't want it to be a bench for unpleasant interaction, even though, you know, I want benches all over the place. Aesthetics, usability, safety, these are things we want. And I want us to remember that this isn't a competition between different areas of the city. You know, look at bigger cities, Portland, much, much bigger, but it has different areas, and it's still downtown because they have the huge suburbs. So we know Eugene's gonna grow. We know it's gonna get denser downtown, and that will be more support for a bigger area. I just think this is really really important. I hope you will support it to go forward with a public hearing. And it's really a happy thing. So I hope we can do it. And I've worked really hard advocating to keep this money for open space. So I think this is a really good use of it. Not that I don't have plans for all the rest of it. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Mike, and then Claire.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome back, everybody. Will, nice work. This is good plans. $2.5 million seems like an awful lot of money, though, to make the block and a half look, or a block more inviting. The purpose of tax increment financing, and as used in urban renewal, is to increase the private property values of the surrounding properties, thus making it easier to repay the debt from the increase in property value. That's the point of tax increment financing. As this is immediately adjacent to the Holt Center, I see that and would concede that this may enhance the property value of the Graduate, but are you suggesting that this enhances the value of other surrounding properties? And if so, which ones and how much?
First of all, just to make sure that we're clear about this, we're talking about the $400,000 of urban renewal funding going into the project at this point. The full project funding is a different question for a later day. That being said, I guess I have a couple of different responses for you, talking about the question that you asked. The first is that going back to the 2016 plan amendment, which is really where this is grounded, and going back into council's resolution, or the agency board's resolution about a year ago in July, where we were directed to spend money. In both those cases, we were directed to spend money on open space improvements. So that has been the foundation for this work, to explore this public space. In terms of property values, I don't think this has an immediate nexus with any one particular property, but one of the things that we have been focusing on, and this goes to something Councillor Semple talked about, is that there are parts of downtown that present real barriers to people as they think about connections through the city, and as they actually try to navigate between places. And what we often find is that people's perception of distance is very different than what the actual distance is, based on a number of very small kind of subconscious barriers. And I point to the work that's done in retail design. When you're in a high-end store or a large national chain, they spend a huge amount of time fine-tuning each aspect of the design to either encourage people to go one way or to make different decisions to come into the store and not. So in the same way, we have these small barriers that prevent people from moving from one part of downtown into the other. And so if we can better connect the blocks south of 7th Avenue with the new investment that OB Companies is putting in, with get those properties that much closer to the new Riverfront Park, that provides a real amenity that becomes the kind of thing that you can talk about as, you know, this new apartment, this new store, this new office is close to a beautiful Riverfront Park. And we're trying to create those connections. And that, I think, really does make property more valuable and more desirable.
I appreciate that. That's a good answer to that. My only other question would be, if we were to think of what most people in Eugene would consider, and I'm going to use this phrase in quotations, the problems with our downtown, what percentage of the problem would you say is lack of connectivity?
I don't think lack of connectivity is something that jumps to the top of a lot of people's lists, but I think it does play a factor in the way that a lot of people choose to make decisions. Obviously, there are any number of things that jump to the top of people's lists, and so I'm not suggesting that this is the only place that we would invest resources.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your work.
Okay, Claire, and then Alan.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, good to be back. It feels like I forgot how to do this, so glad I wasn't called on first. Thank you, Will, for the presentation. I think it's very worthy, and I really want to give Councillor Semple credit for really persisting in setting aside the funding that we have for these public spaces, and not taking no for an answer from us on that. Couple of comments. That wheelchair ramp is just awful. I've never had to use that ramp, so I had never seen it. That's just terrible. I'm glad that's on the list for improvements. One thing that's not mentioned even, I think, in the full plan, which I know would be very expensive, but maybe there's a less expensive way to get around it, is that sloping sidewalk on 7th that faces the Holt Center. It's not a very long distance, but it is very difficult to navigate. You know, I have some minor issues with walking, and I can't walk on that part of the sidewalk at all. And then the Memorial Garden, I'm so glad that that there was a letter of support from that. This is a hidden gem of a memorial in the heart of our downtown, and one of our few memorials in town really marking a historic wrong that occurred in terms of the interment of Japanese citizens from this part of the country. And now more than ever, making sure that it gets some attention and is more accessible and more noticed by folks, I think is more important as we continue to fulfill our commitment to equity. And then I think the plan, the phase to focus on the 2 entrances is a really good one. And having a backup plan to focus on the north one, I think is important. And partly speaking to Councilor Clark, but also I'd already had these thoughts, was that is going to create a much better connection between those businesses on the north end of Willamette and the train depot to the rest of downtown. And really enhancing this thoroughfare is going to create more business for all of those private businesses north and south of the Holt Center. And by having improvements to public spaces, we do enhance the property value of the private spaces that are nearby. They become more desirable locations to locate your business or your office or your residence. And conversely, if we let them deteriorate, then we're actually contributing to, dampening those property values that are in private hands. So thanks so much. I can definitely support the motion in the packet.
Thank you, Alan, and then Matt.
Thank you, Mayor. Glad I was able to finally get on. I had some problems connecting at the beginning of the meeting. So thanks for that. I think open space is important. What it looks like, what our public spaces look like, and how well they're maintained and how they're updated is an important part of it, which is why I supported the dedication of money towards public spaces. I agree that the better connections helps everybody in that vicinity. So I think that's really important. Will, maybe you can talk to the limitations on URD Urban Renewal District dollars, on what it can and cannot be used for, infrastructure versus programs versus ongoing expenses.
Sure.
Because there's always a trade-off, right?
Yeah.
You don't spend on something else, but you can't spend it on everything.
The major limitations on spending urban renewal dollars, first of all, it has to be within the district. It has to be, these project funds have to be spent on capital costs and physical improvements, and not on operations. So we can't, pay the salary of an attendant to be in the space or something like that, and ongoing services like that. And then per the amendment in 2016, there's actually a few different projects that were identified at that time, and so and those were the projects that I ran through at the beginning, and so the funds have to go into one of those projects. So this spending goes into the park blocks and open space project that was identified at that time.
Good, thanks. Yeah, so while I agree with what Mike said, urban renewal dollars has limitations which allow us not to address everything in that with the problems of downtown. So and setting aside this money for public space and improvements in that regard I think is really important. I also wanted to reiterate what Claire said, which is the Japanese memorial is such an important part of the city. It's not only extremely well done, it's beautiful, but it's also an important recognition of imprisonment of our own people that we should always remember and never have that occur again. So I think it is a gem, and I'm glad that those folks were consulted and that they're in favor of this. I had a couple of quick questions on page 19, the schematic on the left side says visually accessible wall for projection. I'm not sure what that is. Is that a billboard, a kind of thing that would replace the old kiosk, triangle kiosk eventually?
No, the intention there is less billboard and more of an art space. Our cultural services team continues to explore opportunities with projection art, and because of the unique role that it does, combining our visual art wealth and our technology strengths. So that's what the intent there.
Oh, okay, and that's part of this project.
Yeah, that's part of the larger expanse of the project.
Right. The other question I had, just to show my ignorance, on page 8, it has all the arrows pointing all the pieces, parts of the project. One of them is a public art plinth. I don't know what a public art plinth is.
A plinth, the intention of a plinth is it's a pedestal, a place where art can go. And I'll get back to you if I'm misinforming you, because this is one of the details I'm less involved with. But my understanding is that the intent here is to create a spot where temporary art can be located. The plinth both raises it off the ground and may have electrical, either power and or lighting accessible to it. Less sure about that, but generally it's the intent is to create a place where art can go, so that we can more readily do temporary art in a space like this.
Yeah, and breaking down that wall so you can access it would actually be really important, but that's later plan, right? Yep. That's not part of it. So there's always the question of if we didn't do this project, what would we do? So maybe you can get back to us on that, unless in case you don't have an answer right now. But I like this idea, and I'm willing to move it on to a public hearing, and maybe that could be part of the information, unless you have an answer to that now. Well,
I can share a general answer. This is the project that really has risen to the top for staff in a number of conversations with stakeholders, looking at the, going back to all this public data gathering that we did. And as Councilor Semple has indicated, this is something that Eric Brown and others have been working on for quite a while, trying to figure out where limited investment can create the biggest bang for the buck. To be in keeping with the direction of the agency board, we could certainly invest this money in any of the other public spaces downtown, the park blocks. We can invest it in the Kesey Square. We can invest by the H. Also in other streetscape improvements throughout the space. So those are all potential options, but this felt like the place where the need was the greatest. And like I said, the kind of the bang for the buck. The conditions have deteriorated enough that we would really like to recreate this connection.
And maybe you said this at the beginning. When was this built?
I actually don't know when this was built, but it's been there for a while.
So like early 80s, actually, yeah. With the Holt Center, right? Okay. All right. That's a good answer. I like that answer, actually. And the connection between those two kind of parts of downtown on either side of 6th and 7th is an important aspect of creating pathways and being able to be connected. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Matt, and then Jennifer.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Will, for the presentation. And thank you, Councilors Zelenka and Syrette, especially for highlighting the garden, the acknowledgement of the Japanese-American internment during World War II. I just reading up on the garden that's located between the Holt Center and the Graduate. I did not know that site is the site of the former office building where Japanese Americans registered for internment here in Oregon. So I appreciate, Will, the comment you made that the proposal, I believe you said abuts, but does not impede the Japanese memorial. I think that's sound and wise, and I recognize the importance of highlighting that existing memorial even better than as it currently stands. I do have some concerns, and I do recognize from a mobility justice point of view the comments that were made about improving the sidewalks, but there are communities throughout our municipality that don't have sidewalks at all, and there are a number of trees that are on the docket to be uprooted, and though the proposal has quite a bit of greenery, assuming that trees will be planted once the project comes to fruition. Do you have any idea, Will, what number a ballpark would be uprooted and what number are on the docket to be replaced?
I don't have that information. I can look at what we have in the schematic design and provide that information later. And certainly, whatever the case is, going forward, we would work really closely with urban forestry to make sure that we were doing this in the way that had both the most immediate benefit and especially a long-term vision for urban forest.
Another concern I have is in regards to hopefully a return to normalcy as more folks get vaccinated and hopefully the Delta variant will be in the rearview mirror by the time 2022 rolls around. Would this, if that's the case, would this project impede or prevent or have any negative impact on either the business at the Graduate or projected business at the Holt Center?
No, that's something I didn't mention, but that's an important part of the timing consideration. One of the reasons we were able to get right on the calendar and we if you do direct us to have a public hearing and further action, we'll try to make sure that everything's happening in a reasonable speed. This will allow us to have the work completed by June, which would be ahead of both anything that's going on with Oregon 22 and also the Holt Center's big year next year.
Great. And I am a fan of cranes in the air downtown. I think my computer was cutting out when you mentioned the other spaces. I heard Kesey Square as one. What were some other considerations, Will?
I had mentioned the park blocks, Kesey Square, the area in front of the Holt Center, or sorry, the library and the atrium building. Those are the ones that we had looked at before with Project for Public Spaces, but also any other streets and alleyways in the district would qualify for this category of spending.
Great, thank you. And finally, I mentioned the Graduate and the Holt Center. Those are the obvious that are going to be the most affected and the most those that may benefit the most. But to the north, I'm thinking of 6th Street Grill. To the south, one of my favorite barbers in town. What's the engagement been like to the businesses in the surrounding area, and what's the response been?
I can look into any specifics. I know that the primary engagement that we did has been a part of the Project for Public Spaces, which was broad and certainly involved downtown merchants and representatives of downtown merchants. But I don't think that we have gone on a project where it is fairly contained. We have not gone, done a radius around the project to make sure that we're talking to everyone.
I suspect they'll be part of the next phase.
Yep.
Great. Thank you, Will, and thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Jennifer. And then we have a couple of counselors seeking a second round.
Thanks. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it, the detail and how it appears like you really spent a lot of time considering a lot of different factors before bringing this plan forward. And I really appreciate that. I was the way I read this, it seems like in this conversation, we have acknowledged that a very important part of this process is the memorial that sits on the property. And yet it appears to me reading this that there was no representative on the advisory committee that was involved in the planning and creation of that memorial. And I think that's a little bit of a misstep. And in projects in the future where there's an important cultural or memorial element to it, I feel like it would be great for us to do some effort to make sure someone is on that group. Asking someone afterwards is great, and the letter is very helpful, but that doesn't really, it's not quite the same as being part of the process. And so just in the future, I think that's something we should keep in mind when organizing these groups. Otherwise, though, I'm really thankful for Emily for keeping this going and keeping it in people's minds, because it looks like an awesome project. And I appreciate Will's explanation of how it will impact the whole area, because I think that's accurate. And I'm very supportive of it. That is it.
Thank you. And then I have Claire and Mike, each for a second round.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, a couple of things I forgot to mention, and then a little response to some other comments. So I was wondering if those triangular kiosks on the north and south of the Holt Center, if there's been any discussion about replacing those. They are a little clunky and outdated, but maybe that's later for another update to the Holt Center and not part of a project that's already looking a little tight on funds, but just wanted to bring that up. And then I wanted to also mention, I'm very supportive. There was a mention in the AIS about if there is any remainder to dedicate that to alley lighting and sidewalk repair elsewhere in downtown. And I think that's an excellent idea. And then to Councilor Keating's concerns that there are other places in town that don't currently have sidewalks, I think as Councilor Zelinka's line of questioning reminds us, we can't use the money in the urban renewal district to repair sidewalks in other parts of the city. It can only be used within the district. So we aren't denying other parts of the city the benefit of sidewalks if we use urban renewal funds to improve sidewalks downtown. So I think that's an important understanding to have, that it's not we're taking a benefit into downtown and denying it somewhere else, that these funds can only be used there. Thanks.
Thank you. And Mike, final comment?
There we go. Thank you, Mayor. I want to take a cue from Jennifer here and what everybody was saying. I think it would be a very important piece of this as the work finishes to reintroduce the memorial there in some way, or to have folks that were involved in that play a part. I get to sound like the official old guy when I say I remember when that was dedicated. I attended the ceremony that dedicated that memorial. And my recollection is that Federal Judge Ann Aiken and her family played a leadership role in that process. I remember being with them during the dedication there. That might be, Will, a contact too. You probably have records of all of that, but for those who have been involved with that project all along, I'd like to see them involved even more so if we're going to end up doing this work and kind of, representing this connectivity in this area. Thanks.
And Matt, one more comment.
Thanks, Mayor. I appreciate Councilor Syret's clarification about urban renewal dollars and usage thereof. Finally, I just had a thought. I'm trying to recall where the Peace Health bike share station is in that area. And I just want to ensure that service isn't interrupted, and ask if there's any intentionality about promoting bike riding throughout the municipality. If there isn't one, I really can't recall where that's at in that area. If there's an opportunity, should there be extra dollars attached to this project, or if there's any plan to expand or preserve or promote the bike share program in that immediate area.
That's a great question. I neglected to say that the bike share station is in the median on 6th Avenue on the north side, the median between the major street way and then the slip lane. The project team is absolutely working to retain the bike share station, but looking to see if there's a better location somewhere else on the site, maybe that would be both safer and maybe more convenient, more spotlighted. So I think that your concerns are already something that's on the team's mind.
Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciated the questions that councilors asked. I'm very excited about this project. I think somewhere in the packet that ramp is referred to as a cattle chute, and I think it really feels that way when you walk through there, that you're being herded through, and it means you bypass the Memorial Garden and you just sort of scurry on. So I just want to commend you for just redesigning around that. And I think the whole project is great. I love the iterative nature of this, and the fact that if more money is available at a future point, we could do the whole expansion, but this is a really critical improvement. And so with all of that, I am going to turn to Jennifer to put a motion on the table.
Sure. I have it right here, which I just covered up, of course. Okay, move to direct the agency director to schedule a public hearing to solicit public comment on whether the proposed open space project should move forward and on the appropriate funding mechanisms for the projects. The agency director is further directed to schedule a work session for the agency board to deliberate on the projects.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and none opposed. Thank you so much. Will, thank you. That was really a wonderful presentation, a great conversation, and we look forward to the next step and a public hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I will close out the meeting of the Public Renewal Agency and open up the City Council meeting for our next item, which is the unhoused response update. Manager?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to have Christy Hammett just jump in and kick it off.
Thank you, Sarah. Hi, I'm Christy Hammett, Assistant City Manager, and I'm joined today by Matt Rodriguez, our Public Works Director, to provide you with a progress update on the work being done by the centralized unhoused response team that was established last spring to lead the response in developing better outcomes for our unhoused and the broader community. Since the time the team has been working on a lot, and there's a lot of coordination that's been happening with community partners and service providers to implement solutions that really do improve the experiences of everybody that is impacted by houselessness. The goal that we're working towards is the establishment of safe sites that were authorized by council last spring. You might recall that was 200 RV and car sites and 300 tent sites. The work of the team really focuses on 3 areas. It's the daily work, the day-to-day services to support the people that are sheltering in our temporary urban sites, management of our existing programs that we have in place and have expanded on, and then of course the communications and engagement. And then the team also works really hard to address the urgent needs, addressing and mitigating those things that come up on a day-to-day basis that impact safety and need to be addressed immediately. And then the most exciting part, at least from my standpoint, is the long-term, the planning and the implementation of the safe sites, but really in the context of bigger visions that that you guys have been working on. I'd be remiss to say that this effort would not move forward in the way that it has and with the speed that it has if it were not for the community members, businesses, partners, our relationship with the chamber and our service providers. It takes everybody working together to actually be able to make progress, and the channels of communication have been great. And I think that it's helping all of us develop better solutions as we look forward. I just want to give a little bit of gratitude to the team. As I mentioned, they're working on the daily, urgent, and long-term issues every single day. And I would imagine that on a day-to-day basis, there's somewhere between 50 and 100 employees at the City of Eugene that are somehow touching this work, either on a full-day basis or on an urgency need response. The team really does show up ready to roll up their sleeves and deliver services and respond to the complaints with a sense of urgency, compassion, and professionalism. And I just really grateful for all that they're doing, and mostly grateful for the relationship that we're building with the community and our partners. So today we're going to take a quick look at a few different things. We'll talk about our current conditions, what's happening at Washington Jefferson Park, 13th Avenue, and in the West Eugene area. Staff are going to also share a little bit about the progress and challenges in the establishment of our first safe sleep sites. And then we'll also talk about the extended partnerships that are being developed and the help that we're receiving from the private sector as more people look to find viable solutions. So just a reminder, again, I use this slide a lot because for me, it's one of the most important slides that we have, because it really is that we never lose sight of the fact that we're working within a system, and the housing implementation pipeline, which will be coming back for a work session and update in October, is really the vehicle to help us think about the system. Matt and I both sit on a policy team that's focused on that plan, which really gives us a vision as we're thinking about the short-term solutions that we're trying to put in place while we work on better long-term pipelines for the folks that need housing. The integration coordination is super critical to addressing all shelter and housing needs. There's again, broad communication or coordination with the community partners, especially our colleagues at Lane County. I've been saying this a lot lately, is that there's a sense of hope and optimism as we work together to really realize a shared vision for the future. And it's a very exciting time to be working together. And although not specifically called out in this diagram, I think it's worth noting that the success of the system also rests with the provider capacity that we need. And so there's a lot of conversation that's happening with respect to placing a high priority on how we support our providers so that they can thrive in doing the work that they do for this community, because it's so critical. So a little bit about current conditions. So today, as I mentioned, that we'll talk about quite a variety of things, but just wanted to kind of set the tone to let you know where we are. The August homeless by name list was at 2,405. That's been relatively consistent over the last several months. I guess the bad news is that we still have a high number of people that are experiencing homelessness. But the good news is that the number has remained stable, and we're working to do things to mitigate the impacts. As we prepare to move forward into the fall later this month, we plan to continue utilizing the urban camping criteria that was established and created last fall. We feel like this is in alignment with the public health guidance as we weigh multiple factors regarding the unhoused. Our staff continue to have open dialogue with Lane County staff about the situation, and I think that relationship has just been invaluable. In addition to the COVID public health guidance, we also pay close attention to the heat and smoke events that impact the community and the steps being taken to mitigate the impact to our most vulnerable populations that we serve. While not a focus of this discussion today, it is worth mentioning that we're also continuing to work for winter strategies with Lane County. You heard a little bit about that at your JEO meeting. I anticipate you'll hear more in your next one, but just want to let you know that is definitely on the radar. With that, Matt, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Christy. I'm Matt Rodriguez, the Public Works Director. Happy to talk to you a little bit about the status of our work. This is a slide you're pretty familiar with that we've shown each time we've come in front of you. It basically shows the number of requests for service we have each month for vehicle camping, camping in parks, and tent camping in the rights of way. And as you can see, the trends kind of continue as they have. Tent camping in parks and right of way continues to be pretty stable, but we do see that growing trend of vehicle camping requests for service. And just a reminder, this is not the number of people experiencing homelessness in these different areas, it's the number of the requests we get from the community or are generated from our own staff. Next slide. So we continue to have a large staff presence at both 13th Avenue and Washington Jefferson Park. The latest count at Washington Jefferson Park is around 240 tents. Staff have been working with people sheltering in the park the last few weeks to transition to a grid camping pattern, which is basically creation of 12 by 12 spaces with 12 feet apart. I believe that they'll have this work completed in the next few days, and feedback from folks sheltering in the park has mostly been positive about this change, and folks have been cooperative in that process. The reason we're doing the gridding is it allows for consistent COVID safe spacing, easier cleanups, helps us better manage the number of people that are camping in the park, facilitates emergency access, and keeps campsites at equitable sizes. We've now started working with sheriff's work crews 5 days a week at the site to help deal with the amount of trash that's coming out of Washington Jefferson. And we have EPD and security teams offering additional support for overnight monitoring of the site. On 13th Avenue, we have 68 tents. That's down from 75 at the peak. In the photo, you can kind of see what a grid pattern looks like. We've had 13th in this configuration for a while, and it really does help organize the site. We've added 2 additional site monitors to create a team of 4 to provide longer daytime and weekend coverage. And we're getting feedback from site monitors that there are a number of people staying at this location that really are good candidates to move in other supportive housing or alternative shelter types. And I know we've had service providers that help manage those type of shelters out there, talking to folks to start getting folks lined up for those opportunities. So vehicle camping, following council direction in April, staff have been working to implement the commercial and industrial parking project, specifically in West Eugene. And the first streets to receive new parking regulations include Owens Loop, Cap Court, sections of 5th, 6th, 7th, and 13th Avenues, Wallace Street, Oscar Street, Nolan Street, Commercial Street, and Commerce Street. So we've actually done quite a bit of work out there to get new signs and regulations in place. As part of the parking project, staff have conducted outreach to several dozen businesses to ascertain the street and driveway use. And the city's parking manager is exploring an administrative order to allow on-street community permit parking that could be used by employees. The council approved code amendments for on-street parking regulation took effect July 24th. The code changes have improved commercial vehicle access and created turnover for vehicles marked for storage on the street. We have had a few complaints about recreational vehicle owners that are parking in neighborhoods. In the cases we've received the complaints about enforcement, they would have actually been cited for storage on the street anyway for having their vehicle longer than 3 days in one place. So not a lot coming back in that impact area. Parking Services is in the process of hiring for additional limited duration staff to increase capacity to support implementation of the new parking regulations and code.
So one of the other goals that was established for the process was to improve communication both internally and externally. And we're really excited to share that we hired a new communications manager, Kelly McIver, to help continue these efforts. Over the last month, we started providing regular updates to 3 different groups. One is the people who signed up for an email specifically about the work at Washington, Jefferson, and 13th Avenue. Businesses that have been impacted by vehicle camping in West Eugene, and finally, social service providers. And we feel like that communication is really helping us stay in tune to what the needs are of the individuals that are within the shelters, but also that are in the surrounding areas. In addition to the broader communication channels, the team is working every day to have individual and small group discussions to discuss the challenges and really working to brainstorm solutions that can improve things for everybody. The goal around increasing our communication is to build community trust, awareness of the issues, solutions, and progress that are taking place.
All right, next we're going to give you an update on our safe sleep site work. Next slide. So as you may remember, our process for safe sleep sites is comprised of 4 phases. Phase 1 starts with a high-level assessment of potential sites as they're identified. In phase 2, our site team performs a more detailed evaluation of the site and community engagement begins. In phase 3, sites move forward for development of site-specific plans, investigation of lease or purchase terms. We continue community engagement, and viable sites are brought forward to council for potential approval. Once council has approved the sites, we move into phase 4, which is securing the property, constructing site improvements to support use, and establishing contracts with service providers. And as a reminder, to date, we have 2 sites that have been approved by council and are in phase 4. And we'll talk a little bit more about those in a minute. We are also close to bringing additional properties into phase 3 and potential council approval in the next few weeks, and I'll touch on that as well. As we complete the implementation work on our 2 approved sites, I'd like to recognize the dedication of our unified command team and the extraordinary amount of work they're putting into these sites to get them open. We've stood up a logistics section of about 8 or 9 people in our unified command solely to support getting these safe sleep sites set up. In the table, you can see some highlights of the work that we've done to date, including reviewing more than 300 sites, reviewing new ones as they're present, presented, creation of site plans, community engagement, lease agreements, parking implementation plans, and for the Garfield site alone, eight different vendor contracts to complete the site preparation work, which is currently underway. We're really proud of the work our team has done, and there are still challenges. At the top of the list is something that Christy mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, that's finding social service providers to act as site operators. We know that our social service provider community is really tapped out, and we're working with them to help build capacity and identify kind of new players coming into that space that can help us expand our work. Without service providers, we can't have the safe sleep sites, so this is really critical to standing them up. Additionally, we all know the pandemic has caused supply chain complications, and we're experiencing some of those as well with materials for the sites, but we're basically working around that to the best of our ability with some temporary solutions to get them open until we can have, the permanent improvement. An example would be a few structures that we have that are coming for the Garfield site that allow the staff, the operations staff, a place to be, and others where people can do cooking or other things where they need a shelter. Also, each site is unique, not only in the physical layout of the property, but the context of the area. So we have to put a lot of work in early developing what each site, how best it can be used. So Second and Garfield is one of our 2 approved safe sleep sites in phase 4. 5-acre property that'll accommodate up to 55 vehicles, and St. Vincent de Paul will serve as the operator for this site. So we're just about to execute the contract with them. We've been working with them for months now to prepare for the site opening. We estimate the cost to operate this site at about $580,000 a year. See, next slide. Here's a few pictures of the Garfield site and the work in progress. Late last month, we completed the lease with LTD for the property. We want to thank the LTD board and staff for working with us to execute the lease and also to reduce the cost to the city for use of the site, which is great because it helps us be efficient with funds. The site has water and electricity service already, and as you can see, grading and fencing work started last week. The site will also serve as a model for us, basically, especially with logistics and thinking about how we potentially even batch sites and batch contracts to stand up more sites in the future. We're targeting an opening date of mid to late September. Chase Commons Park is the other approved site in phase 4, located between Commons Drive and South Garden Way. We have a draft site plan that's been created by staff and are working to identify a social service provider to operate the site. That's planned to have up to 20 Conestoga huts. The site already has water and electricity to the lot. Staff will be shifting more resources to this location in the coming weeks, which will include additional neighborhood engagement once the social service provider is identified. The image you're seeing here is from a community organized meeting where people shared their concerns about hosting a safe sleep site at this location. Several people had questions about security, traffic, safe sleep site, resident expectations, all very understandable concerns. Some also shared the positive impacts from other rest stops they've had experience with, and what this particular location will be modeled after. Even though we don't have a service provider identified, we're optimistic that this site can be opened in early October. As we look ahead, there's a few sites that have the potential to come back before council in the next few weeks. One of those is located northeast of the intersection of Bethel Drive and Roosevelt Boulevard. This is a Square One Village property. Right now, there's actually a microsite on that lot that the city and Lane County have partnered with Square One Village to open up. The Square One Village board may choose to vote next week to create up to 40 total spaces and serve as the operator. If Square One approves the expansion, it'll come back before council shortly after that. We're really excited and appreciative about the possibility for this site. And what's really cool about it is it would allow us to have a safe sleep site opened up within Square One's kind of model for how they run a site. Okay, and last slide for me is community partnerships. We wanted to share this slide, which we originally brought to you back in April, and it's our Unified Command Plan. Identified 4 areas of focus: securing new sites, expanding outreach, ensuring compliance, and finally engaging partners. And while an incredible amount of work is continuing in all 4 areas, I want to take a few moments to acknowledge the community members and groups stepping into this work in a new way and engaging as partners to advance how we work together as a community to address this challenge and provide safe places for unsheltered people to be. So a great example is businesses predominantly in West Eugene, but across the city, built relationships with some of the people vehicle camping near them, trying to encourage positive behavior, and in some circumstances, even providing 1 or 2 spaces on their property where people can stay and help stabilize. And we've heard some really great stories about that. We're also engaging with a group of businesses, faith leaders, and service providers that are working to establish a workforce development and sheltering project that would start as a safe sleep site on a piece of private property in West Eugene. It's a really exciting collaboration, and to see the community kind of come together with this vision. And we're hoping to have more information to share about this at our next council work session with you on this topic. So I'll throw it back to Christy.
Thanks, Matt. So kind of the next steps in the work of the group is that we're going to continue to work on establishing and opening those first 2 safe sites. Matt kind of shared a lot of information about that and the timeline as it relates to that. We want to continue engaging with the community around these sites and other site opportunities, and just in general around the experiences that people are having and how to mitigate challenges that they're experiencing. As Matt mentioned, we hope to come back to council soon with some additional sites for your approval, hopefully really soon, and excited about that. And then continue, again, we've touched on this a few times, but really continuing to work with our social service providers to build that capacity. And that's work I think that our whole region needs to address. And there's, like I said, a lot of conversations that are happening in that arena right now. They're just invaluable workers to the system, and we need to figure out how we support them. And then continue to mitigate the impacts for housed and unhoused, as well as businesses in terms of what they're experiencing. So those are kind of our areas of focus as we move forward. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor, and we'll be happy to answer questions. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you both so much for this presentation. It is it's enormous amount of work that has happened in a pretty short period of time. And I realize that we all feel like we can't move fast enough, but just the idea that you sort of set the model, and to Matt's point about, you know, at the Second and Garfield, sort of learning how to model and might be able to move it along faster at each step along the way. It feels that you learn more and the systems get better. And so really appreciate the way you're going about this, addressing this really challenging crisis. So with that, I have a lineup of counselors first, Mike and then Matt.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I want to say, I think to the both of you and to all the staff that works with you, I think you do a fantastic job of implementing council policy as directed, so that you're doing the job this council is directing you to do, and you're doing it well. And I appreciate that very much. I have some disagreements with the policy direction. I would like to see us do some other things differently, but that's for the entire council to decide. Matt, in the quadrant of the unified command that you just showed on that slide, one of the corners of that was ensure compliance. Can you talk about the activities of ensuring compliance a little bit more? And specifically, is that just for the sanctioned camps, or is that as it relates to unsanctioned camps as well?
Thanks, Councilor Clark. Yeah, that is more broad. So that's really about how we are enforcing things like parking regulations in the community, how we're working together with our EPD department to make sure that we're addressing criminal issues that are occurring in some areas that have come up as hotspots. It's about how we're working in Washington Jefferson Park or 13th Avenue to make sure that the folks that are staying there are meeting the expectation that we've laid out for behavior and trash and things like that. So it's broader.
I noticed at the very beginning, Christy, that you referenced the homeless by name count of, I think, 2405 or something like that. What kind of data do you keep in that?
That list is kept by the county, and it's really a list that takes a look at the people that are signing up for services, either as a first time touch point or not. So it's a way to keep track of those people who identify as being unhoused and that are seeking services. But it's kept by the county.
If they're not seeking services, they're not on the list?
That's a gap in the system, yes.
Okay. Secondarily, how are we addressing, other than just saying, you know, EPD responds, what's our policy position with regard to those members of unsanctioned camps who break the law and are addressed by EPD appropriately? Are they banned from camp? Do we keep a record of who that is and say you can't come back to an unsanctioned camp? How do we deal with that?
That's a really great
illegal behavior both in and around the camps.
Mm-hmm. I think Matt and I probably will both have some information to share. One of the things I will say is that if people are not, you know, following and in compliance with the expectations of folks that are in the sanctioned areas that we have, there have been some people banned for their behavior. I mean, we try to really work with people to correct issues, but sometimes that does happen, and we do monitor that. In addition, EPD is working with and our parks staff that are doing a lot of addressing of illegal camps that pop up and trying to work to help find other places for them to be, but also holding people accountable to say, you can't be here, but these are maybe some alternate spaces that you can go to. But there's a lot of work happening on a weekly basis with that. In fact, we just heard about that from our parks director this morning. So
if someone's banned from camp for the sake of behavior, are they allowed back at some point? Or is that permanent?
At this point, I think we just have, there's very few, to be honest, it's very, very few people that fall into that category. But we monitor that list, and if there's, you know, changes, obviously we want people to be able to access the support systems that they need, but we also need to realize that we're working with a community of people and trying to keep it safe for everybody. And so we would monitor that, and if there's a change that makes it possible for somebody to be in with the community of the unhoused that is set up, then we'll be able to do that.
Because my questions are on the fact that there are good actors and bad actors in every setting, and we know there are some pretty hardcore folks in some of these places, especially amongst those in unsanctioned areas. And my questions are around what are we doing to protect the larger community from the consequences of that, and so I'm trying to drill down to the specific things we're doing. Do we keep lists of any kind of those who are sex offenders staying in any of these camps?
You know, that would probably be a question better asked by the police department. I mean, they have sex offender lists that are for the entire city, right? So not just for specific areas.
But is that an integration issue with the unified command so that we know which ones are staying in which camps?
We are not, to my knowledge, looking at that level of detail. It's not oftentimes information that we have access to. It's police related information.
Would we screen for that with regard to the sanctioned camps?
Matt, I saw your mute come on. Did you want
I think you answered it, Christy. I was just going to talk about, like, for 13th and Washington and Jefferson, we're not keeping by name data for the people that are there. I agree with Christy that EPD would be much better suited to kind of talk about how they do that work, because they have folks in their department that are specifically paying attention to things like where unregistered sex offenders might be turning up and how they respond to that, how they keep track of threats. So I know that's something that's really in their focus right now. So they'd be better able to speak to that.
Is previous criminal behavior or being a member of that registry a criteria for not being able to stay in a sanctioned camp?
Peter, do you want to speak to what some of the requirements are that the providers are looking at?
Sure, Christy. Hi, this is Peter Chavan. I work in the city manager's office as
Thanks,
a homeless policy analyst. So Councillor Clark, related to sex offender screening, if we have a site where there are families with children present, or if a site is located within a designated radius of a school, childcare facility, et cetera, for those locations, we would certainly screen. If the site is in a location that doesn't preclude for other reasons the presence of somebody with a criminal history related to sexual offense, then we would not screen at that point. Our intention for all of these safe sleep sites is to ensure that our disciplinary processes are behavior related. And so in general, that would be the answer to your question.
But with regard to the screening for any of the sanctioned camps, only if it is within some distance of families or school, would you have that criteria? And
yeah,
could you elaborate on the distance?
I'm hesitant to give you the distance. I don't have that information on the top of my head, but I for sure can do a bit of research and get that information to you.
That would be great. Also, with past criminal behavior, is that a screening criteria for sanctioned camps?
Again, we are intending for these sites to be available to folks where the legal system allows them to be. And so if somebody with a criminal history can move into an apartment in a particular location, they also would be able to move into a sanctioned camp.
Sure. And you know, that happens in everyday life all over town, but it's the subject of communication between people when they're talking about the acceptance of a camp in their neighborhood. And so I want to actually bring it out and address it so that we're talking about the facts.
Yeah, absolutely. And if there are situations where you're having conversations with individuals or groups of individuals, I would be happy to come with you and share the learning we've experienced from our rest stops, which don't do those kinds of screenings. And we can talk about the impacts that those neighborhoods are having based on the clientele that's there.
I appreciate the offer. I don't think you have that kind of time with the amount of input I get from people on a daily basis. I don't think you have that kind of time, brother, but I do appreciate the offer. Mayor, would you put me down for a second round, please?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Okay, Matt and then Claire.
Thanks, Mayor. I appreciate Councillor Clark's questioning. It's critical that the safe sleep sites be as safe for those using the sites as they are safe for the community in the surrounding area. I want to hone in on the systems approach chart that Christy mentioned. And Christy and Matt, thank you, by the way, for the presentation and the work, and to the Unified Command team. The systems approach to the housing implementation pipeline is the chart of circles. Looks like 6 baseballs. Baseball's on my mind today. Shameless plug. It's the last week of home games for the Eugene Emeralds this week. So pardon pardon. Let me get back to on track here. Christy, the systems approach circles. I would benefit greatly if those circles indicated both the number of people served by size, perhaps, or a percentage or a population of each one of those 5 or 6 cohorts, and then the percentage of dollars that are allocated. You see what I'm getting at? So that the visuals, so we could really see where dollars are going and how many people are being affected in each one as we move down that pipeline. I would find that wholly informative.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that's exactly what the policy team that's working on the HIP is thinking about, is what are the numbers of people in need in those different circles and where they fall in. And then I like your point about looking at what are the dollars of investment in those areas or needed to be invested to help address the problem. So we're really working on that because we think that's critical to the outcomes that we're trying to achieve. So when the team comes back on the HIP in October, we'll see what we can do to get some of that information provided to you.
Great, thank you. And then finally, the governor's mask mandate in late August curiously leaves out people experiencing homelessness. Yet I think we have an opportunity in these controlled settings for safe sleep sites, or even for rest stops or micro sites, wherever you want to, wherever we call them, because people will be living in close proximity to one another, to have our own policies around masking, and especially around vaccinations. What has the conversation been, and what's our authority as a municipality to say, if you're going to utilize this safe sleep site for the safety of those involved, you have to be vaccinated, both from a staff perspective and from those who are utilizing the safe sleep site who are most in need?
Appreciate you asking the question of me, but it definitely weaves into our legal expert. So I would say that from a mask perspective, it's something that we've talked about requiring for people that are participating in the areas. We've also been thinking about how is it that we make the vaccines more readily available to folks that are in our existing temporary urban camps and other areas, so that they have access to getting a vaccination if they choose to do so. We've not talked about mandating vaccinations, and I guess I would look to Catherine if we even have the authority to do that.
So I haven't looked at this issue specifically, but the components that my office has looked at, I am not aware of anything that would prohibit us from mandating, just having as a condition of entry into a safe sleep site, a vaccination or a mask, particularly if there was also some like offshoots or allowances around that. But just generally, based on what my office has looked at overall when it comes to mandating vaccinations, I'm not aware of any legal prohibition if we were to have that as a condition of acceptance into our program, our safe sleep programs.
That's helpful to hear. Right. That's helpful to hear for a requirement for those who will be utilizing the site. What about for staff, Catherine?
Similar. We could. That would, and we can, looking at various, whether it is, for the staff that are serving the folks there, that it certainly gets into our how we are managing our employees and potentially any of our union contracts. But just overall, yes, we would have that authority as employees.
That's encouraging for as employers and as managers of a safe sleep site.
Correct.
Okay, great. That's great to hear. And if there's anything you need from council's perspective, I'd love to work with you offline if we need a work session or a larger conversation around that particular topic. Thank you, Mayor, for the time.
Thank you, Claire, and then Emily.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Christy and Matt and Peter, for this presentation, and thanks to everyone who are part of your teams working both to manage the current sites we have and to get the new safe sleep spots set up. And I do really appreciate all the effort and resources that are working to bring some order, particularly to the Washington Jefferson Park site, and to hold those who violate the rules accountable. But as I've expressed before we went on our summer break, my constituents and my neighbors are feeling great fatigue over being asked to continue to host this very large camp in the middle of our neighborhood. And just in this week, today I've receiving communication from residents adjacent to the park about, the near constant disruptive activity from residents in the park, in spite of the fact that we have managers there. It's a large site, right? So someone can't be everywhere at once. Individuals are telling me that they don't feel safe in their homes, and some of them have stopped calling EPD, and then even when they're victims of theft or other impacts. And while we can't know for sure that the folks carrying out those crimes, you know, are park residents, the continuing operation of this camp in this location is really contributing to the feeling of insecurity and continuing to put pressure on residents and business owners surrounding the park. So I'm afraid, in spite of our efforts and the resources that we're putting in there, we're reaching a breaking point for tolerance of the site right now. And I want to recognize that, you know, we're maintaining this and the other sanctioned camps in part due to the ongoing COVID pandemic and the other public health measures we've been asked to take so that people don't have to move around as much and aren't contributing to spread. But I don't think any one of us involved in this work thought we would have to have a large part of one of our public parks used for this purpose for so long, right? So I just need to emphasize again that we need to keep the pace of this work going, moving forward, get those safe sleep sites up and running as soon as possible. And then just a couple of questions. So you guys have often provided the population of these sites in terms of the number of tents. Are you able to say how many individuals are staying at the sites, the Washington Jefferson and the 13th site?
I don't have that information on hand. I think it's been challenging in Washington Jefferson because there are so many tents to get a firm hold on the number of people. I think we're probably much closer to knowing an accurate amount at 13th Avenue.
So the service providers aren't taking any kind of census when they do outreach?
They have not shared that with us. I've not heard that they are.
Okay. And then just real quick, when do you anticipate bringing additional sites forward for our consideration? I know there are folks out on River Road who are concerned about the possible sites on the list for Beltline River Road, and having an update on when or if we're going to use those properties sooner rather than later would be really helpful for folks to have some certainty about what's going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily, and then Alan.
I have some of the same problems that Claire's having with the 13th and Chambers. The neighborhood definitely has fatigue, and they feel that they were told it would be done by June and people would be moved, and that's certainly not happening. A huge thank you to Christy and Matt and the 100 staff that are working on this. I know that we don't see a smidgen of the effort, and we continue to be frustrated and cranky, and you continue to work, and I guess that's how it's just going to go. So what is going to happen at 13th and WJ when the site's open? Because the first site is 55 vehicles, and if we're going to put a lot of that towards West Eugene, how much of a difference is it going to make to WJ and 13th, where there really aren't that many RVs, except on 13th, where there's about 8 of them that reach out into the left-hand lane, making 13th a one-lane road, very scary to drive on. Why are they allowed to do that when we have the parking regulations in West Eugene? So I know more things are coming, but people are past patient, and we keep saying we won't move anybody until the sites are open, but we cannot move very many people from WJ and 13th. We don't have any tent sites right now. So how long are they going to have to put up with this camping right next to them? This is getting to be a bigger and bigger problem. The crime, the uncomfort, the intrusion. Those are my big questions. Paying for the communications person, how does that work out with our budget? And we had so many FTEs. That's an extra FTE, not one of the ones we already included. And are there enough potties in that site on Garfield? That was a bunch of questions. I hope you can remember them and give me some answers. If not, I have them written down.
I'll start, and Matt, jump in anytime. So those are all fronts of mind for us. So trying to figure out, in kind of to piggyback on Councilor Syret's questions, when will we be back with additional sites? And we're hoping sometime within the next 2 to 3 weeks that we'll have some more information. We're really excited about the site that Matt talked about, because it's a tent. It would be more like a tent site, right, with Square One Village. And there are a lot of other ideas out there right now that are being pursued that show a lot of promise, and we may be able to bring something back sooner rather than later. There's a lot of outreach happening in the community surrounding some of the different areas that we're looking at. But the nice thing is right now is that there's a huge effort by the business community to really be active in helping us solve this challenge by finding sites. So there's a lot of new things that we're hearing about every single day that we're exploring. And so we're hoping to come back soon. Short answer, come back soon with information about tent sites that would be going up. So Chase Commons would also be a tent site as well. So that would not be a car or RV site. So we're understanding what you're saying is that in order to help people shift from the places that they are, you have to have places for them to go, and that's our focus. So we're trying to take a balanced approach to that. I don't know the number of porta potties at that site, maybe Peter
7.
But yeah.
Which I guess is about right, but when I look at the distance, it seems a little far.
Yeah, and your other question was about budget for the communications.
Okay.
You might recall the city manager put some dollars for ongoing and one-time investment and unhoused response, and so those dollars are being used for that purpose.
Great, that's wonderful. It's taken a while from finding the first site to opening it. So what's the prognosis for from selection to occupation? If we haven't even closed down on the sites yet, end of September, where we're talking about December opening. Remember last year it froze in October. So we're running out of time, and I'm really anxious, and so are my constituents. How long from selection to occupation, roughly? I'll stop after that.
So Emily, it really depends on the site. It really does. So Garfield needed a lot of work. It's a large site, but it's fairly uneven. So it needed a lot of grading work, rock work, fencing work. That all took a lot of time. When we find sites that are paved and they already have some of that infrastructure in place, then it's much quicker to stand up, but it still really is key about the service provider. Having the service provider on board to do it is maybe the most critical piece of the opening. What's exciting about Square One Village is that the service provider would be built in if they choose to move forward, which is awesome. And as we talked about with the opportunity in West Eugene, where businesses, service providers, and some of the faith communities coming together, they would potentially be coming together to also build infrastructure to run the site. So that's kind of potentially new capacity that we have not had within the service provider community. So I think those are two really great examples of things that could come online faster than some of the others.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, Alan.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for this information, and thanks for the work that everybody's doing at the city to work on this issue. I know it's a very difficult thing to do. I'll just echo what everybody else has said, and most of the people I hear from in the community. We need more faster, and I know you're working as fast as you can, and I know people are tired of it all. I'm tired of it all too, and COVID makes this so much more difficult and so much harder. All we need to do is solve COVID first, and then we can move forward. But that's not the way it goes. So I sympathize with the frustration and the grumpiness, and I've experienced it myself. So, but what we have done so far over the years with the rest stops and Opportunity Village and the things that we've done, the way that we've done it has really worked well. The sites are not problematic. I'm not talking about Jefferson, West Jefferson and 13th, but I'm talking about the organized sites that we have that are sanctioned. I'm really excited about the opportunity, Square One Village on Roosevelt and Bethel, and the Garfield car camping site. I think those are going to be great additions to what we've already done. We need more of those. I think moving forward is going to take courage by the council and the staff, and it's going to take focus on the council and the staff. But we got to keep moving forward and try to pick up the pace, especially as we get into the winter, as Emily said. With regard to the point that Councilor Keating was making, vaccines, it's not a mandate. We're not mandating you get a vaccine, but it would be a requirement to participate. And that's significantly different in my book. So if you don't want to get vaxxed, you don't have to, but you can't participate. And I think that's where we as a council need to go in a lot of different venues and the different things, including this issue, that vaccines clearly have been shown to work and be effective, and that they should be a requirement for participation. And we provide alternatives for people who don't choose to do that.
Thank you. We are at time, but I have two counselors with second round, so I'm just going to let you go, and hopefully we'll keep it succinct. So Mike and then Emily.
Thank you, Mayor. Around the end of Alan's comments, there are a good transition to mine. Matt, I noticed the August count of 1,215 complaints. Did I get that right? We saw that line kind of going up, mostly around the issue of car camping, as I recall, but there were 1,215 complaints from the community. 22 business days in a month, that's about 55 complaints a day, more or less. Is that close? And growing all the time. I want to echo Claire and Emily's point. It's not just the neighborhoods that surround those parks and that are reaching a breaking point. The community as a whole is reaching a breaking point with our policy here. And my concern is that our policy is insufficient. We can create all the camps we want, but we have never said we will force anyone to be in them. So if most of the complaints come around the issue of drug use and what comes of it outside of and in unsanctioned camps, and we don't allow drug use in the sanctioned camps, why in the world would any of the folks who do that regularly go there? And we're not going to make them. We've decided that for those that won't be vaccinated, that we're not going to have them in sanctioned camps. So the more of those we build without addressing those who won't comply, we will continue to have the problem that generates the most complaints. And that's the piece I wish we would address better than we have so far, is what do we do with those who won't comply from a behavior and a criminal behavior standpoint, and those who won't comply with any mandates we put on what it takes to stay in sanctioned camps. Those are the folks we need to focus on, and I hope we do a better job with that too.
Thank you. And Emily?
Thank you, Mike. I think that's a really good point, that it's we still have a lot of misbehavior. And then just really quickly about COVID, I'm wondering how many or what percent of COVID cases we're seeing in these two camps. I don't hear about COVID outbreaks of the homeless network that I know about. So I'm just wondering, being outside and social distancing, if that's working. Don't have to tell me now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And actually, in closing, I just wanted to make a comment, which is Mike started this off asking about the homeless by name count, and that HMIS system that the county runs. It does collect a massive amount of data. And I don't know if the county has considered also collecting vaccination data, whether they're asking people who come into the system if they've been vaccinated or not. It seems like it'd be interesting and helpful public health data for us to know. And there might be, and it would be interesting to know how many of the people that are in our temporary sites at Washington, Jefferson, and 13th are actually in the HMIS system, like how many of those folks have been plugged into that system. So that would answer some of the questions about how much data we have about who's out there. So I don't want to hold you any longer. I really appreciate the questions, the concerns, and the answers and the work that's gone on, and there's more to come. So thank you all. And with that, we are adjourned.